Welcome back to Global. I'm John Sopel. Right, if I say someone's name now, you've got to tell me immediately what comes into your mind. And the name is Monica Lewinsky. OK, don't tell me. I can guess. Bill Clinton, cigars, blue dresses, the White House, intern, and on and on and on. But Ms Lewinsky is 40 years old now, and that encounter was nearly 20 years ago. And she's decided to break her silence as she seeks to move on with her life. Well, she's given an interview in the June edition of Vanity Fair in which she speaks about the fling and how it has affected her life. In the magazine, Ms Lewinsky details her regret over the affair. In a style similar to President Clinton when making his famous denial, she stresses, "I, myself, deeply regret what happened." She adds that, although my boss took advantage of me, it was a consensual relationship. On her reasons for going public now, Ms Lewinsky says, it came after much soul-searching. The question became, how do I find and give a purpose to my past? Well, it was back in 1998 that the news broke of President Clinton's affair with 22-year-old White House intern Monica Lewinsky, and the political sex scandal gripped the nation and the world.
But I want to say one thing to the American people. I want you to listen to me. I'm going to say this again. I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky. I never told anybody to lie, not a single time, never. These allegations are false, and I need to go back to work for the American people. Thank you.
As you know, in a deposition in January, I was asked questions about my relationship with Monica Lewinsky. While my answers were legally accurate, I did not volunteer information. Indeed, I did have a relationship with Ms. Lewinsky that was not appropriate. In fact, it was wrong. It constituted a critical lapse in judgment and a personal failure on my part for which I am solely and completely responsible.
Goodness, takes you back, doesn't it? With me now, Jeff McAllister, the former White House correspondent at Time magazine, and the journalist Anne Leslie, who writes for the Daily Mail newspaper here in the UK. Welcome to you both.
Yes.
It does take you back. Right, Jeff, first of all, what do we make of the timing of this Vanity Fair article? Should we ascribe political significance to it?
I think she is probably genuine in wanting to get her life back in a different track. And I think in some ways she's doing it in a nice way for the Clintons, because Hillary is not yet a candidate. There's another year before this becomes active. If she's going to rehabilitate herself and do it so that she doesn't become kind of a laughing stock or a story for herself again, this is as good a time to do it as any. So I don't think the Democrats or the Republicans picked this timing, but I think she did it with sensitivity to the political calendar.
But also she's very, very short of money because the enormous amount of legal fees she had to pay. And I know that she, got a certain amount from various newspapers and things, and then her handbag business. But, she's short of money. She's 40, she's not married, so on.
No, there is some family money, but I think you're right.
Not much.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, and just to go back to that whole period, I mean, I was at the news conference in the East Wing of the White House when Blair was there with Clinton. It was the first time that Clinton had faced the press since then. I mean, it was electric. I mean, it was just captivating.
Well, I thought what was so extraordinary, because I covered, obviously, well, both of his presidential things, and I remember shortly after he had confessed that he had lied about that woman, Miss Lewinsky, I went to a prayer breakfast, you remember, in the East Room of the White House, with this magnificent gold and white and sort of cocoa and all that stuff. And there he was doing his usual, oh dear, will you forgive me? And he was taking consolation and prayers with Jesse Jackson, the other absolutely appalling character. And I was just, other people were saying, oh, you know, he was so unpleasant, both of them, actually.
Jeff, do you think that the American people will ever allow Monica Lewinsky just to get on with her life, to be an ordinary citizen who's pursuing a kind of humdrum career that many of us have?
I think she's probably tried that, and she says she's recognized all the time, and she's a punchline. The difficulty is she cannot really escape her past. I think she considered changing her name. What good would it do is people would recognize her. I think she has to live with her celebrity to some degree, but she came here and did a master's degree at LSE. I think she's a serious person. I think she is doing this in some part, she says, to try to draw attention and sympathy to the people whose reputations get destroyed on the internet. As she says, I was the first one in the history of the Globe, the Drudge Report. And so I think people will give her respect and a kind of grudging distance, but I don't think they're ever going to say, they're not going to forget her.
No,
And do you think of her as a victim?
Sorry?
Do you think
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. She's obviously not a stupid girl because, you know, there she is. She's got a PhD now from the LSE, and, you know, you have to be quite clever for that. But she was very young, very sort of sweet, really. And she was dazzled, as indeed half the world was and still is, by this frightful, you know, hick from Arkansas.
But charismatic as well.
Well, I can tell you, I met him once. No, I met him several times. But I remember there was a time in one of his campaigns, 4:30 in the morning in Arkansas, and it was very cold, and I had a fur coat on, so he didn't see my press thing on. And he looked at me, and it was as if saying, and he said it to every woman he ever met, I think that if we had time and there weren't all these awful people around, we could, and I then went showing all my press No, I was completely impervious to him. And actually I know quite a lot of women who were. But
I just want to bring Jeff in here, a final thought, and of the Clintons today. Do they just kind of wince every time they hear the name Lewinsky, or do you think there will be, actually, that could have been a hell of a lot worse than it was?
It's certainly, I mean, it could have been worse. It could have been better. I mean, impeachment and all that sort of thing. He did go through an incredible mess because of it. But I think the concern is maybe there will be scandals again as she's running for president. He has been, after all, out of office for a long time, and there's been a lot of miles on the airplane where he might have met some other women. And he has this foundation, and I mean, they're getting themselves ready for a presidential run. I think in some ways she's the least of their problems. She's a historical problem, not an active problem.
well,
Interesting. There we have to leave it. Jeff McAllister and Leslie, both of you, thank you very much indeed for being with us. Now, on Saturday, people around Europe are going to be holding parties.